Welcome to the Surrendered Strength Radio. As Christian men, we are called to surrender our lives to Jesus. To surrender to Jesus means to give in, not to give up. We are called to use our strengths, abilities, and opportunities to grow and prosper. We are called to strengthen ourselves, our families, and our communities. We are called to encourage and lift up our brothers in Christ. We are called to honor and glorify God in all things. To surrender our strengths, we must live to a higher standard. We must live with strength, courage, and honor, to love God and to love others as ourselves. This is Surrendered Strength. What's up, men? It's Nyland from Surrendered Strength Radio. Welcome back to another episode. Before we get into it, just a few things. I am doing a 5-day challenge to dive into becoming a surrendered man and learning how to enjoy life with God and uncover your will that God has put in your heart. Now, we are going to dive into identity, purpose, and of course, the three areas of our strength, our spiritual, our mental, and our physical, and how we can use all of those to honor and glorify God. And again, just enjoy life with God. God doesn't want us to suffer. He wants us to enjoy life with Him. So we are going to dive into what that looks like and how you can use your strengths and abilities to honor God. So that is happening June 11th. Get signed up in the link of my Instagram. There's a link there. You can also send me a message, personal message on Instagram to let me know you want in, and I'll get you the information that you need. Again, that's 5 days. It's going to be on Zoom with max 10 to 15 guys. And so, get signed up for that. And secondly, please rate and leave a review on Apple Podcast, so we can just share the gospel, share what men are called to be, and what God has called them to be. So we want to share and strengthen and encourage men to honor God. But I need your help. I need you guys to share so that we can get more people involved, more men involved. So with that, let's get into today's episode with Gabriel Perez. And men, I hope you enjoy. Mr. Gabriel, how are you?
Good. How you doing?
I'm good. I honestly thought that picture
It
that you
was
have
me.
was you. And I was like, oh, that's an interesting pose to start out with.
That was a YouTube thumbnail that I did a long time ago.
That was
So
well played. Well played.
yeah.
How are you tonight?
I'm good. It's been a busy day, but I'm doing well now,
Yeah,
settling down. How about
good.
you?
You know, it was a little bit of a rougher day for me, but I was
Hmm.
just on the phone with the buddy, and he was giving me some good advice and encouragement. So we're on the uphill slide.
Nice.
So if you can slide uphill.
You can if Jesus is walking you up that hill, right?
That's right. Absolutely. Um, so tell me, we have spoken just a little bit. Tell me more about Gabriel Perez and what you do.
Okay, sure. Yeah, so I'm a father. I've been married 12 years to my wife, and we got three kids: 10-year-old, 7-year-old, and a 2-year-old, which you'll probably hear screaming in the background at some point.
That's all right.
And yeah, I work a full-time job, homeschool dad, homeschool my kids, and then also I'm a coach for fathers who are feeling overwhelmed and struggling with feeling like a failure in leading their family.
Nice. you
Yeah.
we have lots to talk about because
Yes.
homeschooling is one of the topics that's a goal of mine to be able to homeschool my kids. I've got a 10-year-old, a 4 and a 3-year-old.
Oh, okay.
So,
I thought you just had the two young ones because I saw the picture. I didn't see the 10-year-old.
yeah, she's around. She's might not always get in the pictures, but she's around.
Yeah.
Yeah. But yeah, that's a goal of mine is to homeschool. And you say
Hmm.
you do that with a full-time job and
Yeah.
you do coaching and you do the homeschooling.
Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Life is busy. And so when
yeah,
I think we talked yesterday, I was like, oh, I'm busy, man. I'm like, it's just going by crazy. Like, I fell asleep on the couch last night. I
right?
got home from we had to do trail life. It's like Boy Scouts. I was explaining.
Yeah, yeah.
I got home, said, kids, brush your teeth, did prayers, put them to bed. And I literally sat on the couch and went to sleep
Nice.
within minutes. I mean,
That's
yeah.
that just means you're doing stuff.
Yeah.
So, what is your day look like then? Or
Yes.
like when do you homeschool?
So when I get home from work, I'm fortunate with my job that there's a lot of flexibility.
Yeah,
So I think that's kind of the edge that I do get, because I'm a salaried employee. I'm a like a district manager in sorts. They changed the title,
yeah,
but I have to be available pretty much till 5 in the afternoon, and I tell my guys I'm available 4 in the morning. So that kind of gives me some stress that I'm not out in the field all day.
right.
And I wake up hope typically about 4:30,
Yep,
and then I get out to the field about 6:30. When I get home, it could be about either 1:30, 2:30. So at that time I still have plenty of day left, and I'll get into homeschooling at
right.
that point.
Very cool.
Yeah.
So, sorry, I'm gonna be honest. I was a little off topic from what I had planned
Yeah.
because that's just new information. So that was that, but that's cool.
We're getting to know each other. That's cool. I like it though.
Yeah. So you said you were a coach and you help
Mhm.
men feel like they're or say that again so I don't butcher that.
Yeah, I help men who are feeling overwhelmed
There you go.
and feeling like a failure, that failure in leading their family.
Nice. So who's you know if a man most men are hard headed and don't really want to admit that. So
Yeah.
how do you get through to men and get through that or get past that maybe that pride blocker or whatever you want to
Mhm.
call it.
Yeah, it's not easy, and and I'm finding that too in starting my practice because it's new, that men don't want to admit that. I didn't want to admit that,
Right.
and it takes a lot for a man to say I need help. But in doing a survey, I did a survey with a bunch of men in a Facebook group, a bunch of dads. So what is the one thing that you struggle with as a father and a husband? And first thing was feeling like a failure
Really.
right
Okay.
off the bat. So it's the struggle that everyone I think feels at certain times, but it's not the one that they want to talk about. It's not the one that they want to deal with. And I think too, as men, we are. I heard it in your podcast. I was listening to it. How we overcomplicate things and we go
Right.
to do stuff. We do more. And as men, that's what we do. We just do more. And I think that's where the overwhelm comes in, because in trying to be a leader to our family, not feel like a failure, it's almost like we start doing more, more and more and more. And then you find yourself overwhelmed. And so I feel like those two things they kind of they work off of each other. And
Right.
and for me personally, that's the road I was on too.
Yeah. That's I was the guy I was talking to a little bit ago. We were kind of on the same topic of instead of trying to do more, what can we shed of off of maybe that's a material thing or maybe that's just an inactivity. What
Mhm.
can we shed off and really just lean into God more. And
Yeah.
you're absolutely right that when we try and do more, we we get that overwhelming. So what I guess what advice would you give a man who's feeling overwhelmed? Or what would you, or how would you start that process of coaching them?
Yeah. I think it's kind of leads into what we wanted to talk about, but I believe it starts with your heart and understanding why where you're operating out of, what question you're trying to fulfill, and then ultimately coming to the fact that we as men need to be fathered by God. We
Right.
need to become sons of God. And I think I told you this quote. It's by George MacDonald. It says, "Since we are sons of God, we must become sons of God."
Yes.
And that's been it for me. Is it's abiding in Jesus. It's coming to God and letting Him father you, so that in turn you can father your children. You can be a husband to your wife. You can be that what they need, but it's only through the leading and prompting that you
Right.
gain from God.
I'm glad you brought that quote up. If you didn't, I had it written down because yes, that's absolutely correct. You know, if we are going to be sons of God, we have to act like sons of God. And
Yeah.
honestly, that was, as I mentioned earlier in chat, that was a place where it was a pivotal point in my journey.
Mhm.
In it was finding that identity.
Mm.
You know, we're told that when we become Christians that we become a new creation.
Yeah.
And well, what does that look like? And our you know our out outward appearance may not change. It'll probably change over time, but you know, going into the water, being baptized, and then coming out, other than looking wet, we don't look much different.
Hmm.
So we are, but we're called or told that we're a new creation,
Yeah.
and that I think that is exactly what that new creation that we become is a son of God,
Hmm.
and we have to figure out what that actually looks like. So can you go more into what that looks like as uh, you know a new creation as a son of God? How how does that look in our day-to-day life?
Yeah. It's it's just living moment by moment. If I can kind of put it in such a way, because it's kind of hard to explain, but it's surrendering your and your plan, and surrendering what you think is right. Because so many times I thought, I heard in the podcast you were saying we can do the right thing, and it's all the right things, but if our heart, the inside, like you said, doesn't is not right, then something's wrong.
Right.
And so it's like with God and walking with God, we can look the part. Our Instagrams can be nice, and we could look like father of the year. Like I know I post a lot of stuff about being a father, and it may look like I'm like killing it in the game, but don't make no mistake. I struggle. I yell at my kids. I get upset. I get frustrated. I lose
Right.
my patience. And so it's really just day by day surrendering, walking with God. I think the biggest transformation in my life has been my mornings with God. Just waking up, and I remember when I first became a Christian, I was obsessed with, okay, now I got to learn the word because I didn't know anything about God. So I'm waking up early to read the word, which is great. There's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
Over time, though, I just found that I was just checking a box. After a while, it was like, oh, I read my word, I prayed over my list, as God is like kind of my genie. We're good. All right. And I move on with my day, but I wasn't really getting close to God. I wasn't even believing him as a father or a provider. I hadn't dealt with the wounds that I had. And so it was just this thing to check off the box every day. And I remember I had to step away from that, because I was like, this it's just wrong. There's something that's missing in my heart in this, that I'm not doing it to get closer. I'm doing it because I'm like, it's like a vending machine.
Right.
And I don't want to be transactional with God, that I do this and I'm hoping that he blesses my life because, hey, I read the Bible, I prayed to him. And he just doesn't, God's not like that, because he wants more. He wants your heart. He wants to be close to you. He wants to be intimate. And so it's just finding that time and space, that it's not checking a box. It's not, works, religion. It's just trying to have a relationship in the most honest way that you can. And so for me, it's been just Sunday morning, or not Sunday mornings, but in the mornings of just kind of sitting with God. Like I do read the Bible, I journal, I pray, but it's not like so structured. Sometimes I'll just sit there for like 30 minutes and just like, thoughts go through my head, but then all of a sudden something will speak to my heart. And we know that he's fathering me in this moment, or I'm releasing some things that I was bitter about or upset. So it's just finding space to to make it a two-way conversation, I would
Right.
say.
Yeah, that's I've had a very similar experience where when I started out, I was checking that box, and it wasn't until I started I started asking questions instead of just reading and maybe doing the journaling, but it wasn't until I started asking the questions and I've read a couple of Eldridge's books.
Mhm.
You mentioned Fathered by God, and then the
Yeah.
Wild at Heart one, and in there he's got some questions that I've used, and one of them is just asking God, you know,
Mhm.
who do you say I am, or
Yeah.
who I am to you, and once I started asking questions and truly taking the time to just pause and listen and allowing God to speak into my life. And that made a huge difference in the relationship that I have with him. And
Mhm.
it sounds like this similar situation with you. And one of the things that, again, asking the question, who do you say I am? It, Hearing God say that your son, just saying son or my son,
Mhm.
hearing that is, we can have people tell us all day long, oh, you're a new creation, you're the son of God, da 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 da. Da. But you know, it's completely different when you hear it from the Father's mouth.
Yeah. It's that believing it.
Right? Yeah. Oh,
Uh,
yeah. That's absolutely the next step. Once you hear it, you know, we can hear it and just, oh, okay, well, that's cool. But yeah, you're right. Believing it, and then as we talked about, living it.
mhm. Yeah, and it's like you said, bring asking questions. That is the most powerful, I think, because it's like it's scary to ask questions of God and wait for an answer.
Right.
Because sometimes you have these expectations of, okay, what is he going to say, or is he going to speak? Maybe he's not going to speak. How long do I wait? And you kind of go through this game of like, is he going to speak? Is he not going to speak? And then if he doesn't, it's like we have these expectations that he was going to speak to me. They told me to do it, and that is such a tough practice, but it's just one of those labors of love where you put your fleece out there, and many times God has not spoken, but many times he has spoken, and it just renews your faith
Right.
that God is so big and so much more grander than you can ever really comprehend.
Right. I know another thing that I've struggled with in term, when you start asking the questions is, am I hearing it from my head or am I hearing
Mhm.
it from my heart?
Yeah.
And so there's lots of times where I'll have to maybe ask the question again, or maybe even ask it in a different way. And sometimes I feel it's very distinctly coming from my head, and it's the answer that I want, and not necessarily the answer that God is trying to give me.
Yeah.
But then there's other times where you can just almost feel the voice of God coming from your heart and up, and
Hmm.
it's powerful. It's awesome. I don't know if you've had similar experiences like that, but
Yeah. It is, and it's you can't really describe it other than what you just said. It's powerful. It's awesome because you don't know that you know until you know.
right,
Like it just speaks in. I remember asking God, like, how do you feel about me? And then just the word proud came to my heart, and I was like, but I wanted to hear that. But the thing was is I heard it and it made me tear up and cry.
right,
And I was like, okay, so that is not my own doing. That's God coming in because he's just connecting my heart to my head in a sense, and validating that in such a way that I can't explain it. I mean, that's what I wanted to hear, but he confirmed that that's what he told me. And
Right.
well, yeah.
Absolutely. Absolutely. So, we kind of talked about, the identity. We become this new creation. We get our identity, which I feel is, you know, in our world today is a big issue.
Mhm.
You know, a lot of people don't know their own identity, and they're trying to find an identity in this world when realistically we need to go to the Father to find our true identity, and that's men, women, you know, everybody. So once we have that identity, then we can kind of move and go towards, our calling, our purpose.
Mhm.
And um, that I think that's where that whole, act like the Son of God comes in. Would you, agree? And what would you add to that?
Yeah, I'd agree. I mean, it's definitely, I think, part of the process is that validation to get from the Father that you know who you are.
Right.
And you think of Jesus before he actually started his ministry, he got baptized, and the Lord validates him. God validates him and saying, "This is my son in whom I'm well pleased." And it's like Jesus needed that validation. How much more do we need it?
Right. That's
you know,
that's a
and
very good point.
and so it's huge, and it's I found that it's a journey. 'Cause even just now, maybe a couple weeks ago, I was praying to be to believe that I'm a son of God,
Right.
and God kind of told me like it's not just a one step process. Hey, I'm the son of God. I believe it. It's a journey. It's a journey of discovery of knowing Him and going deeper with Him. And I think it was Ezekiel who went into waters, and you could go as deep as you wanted to go. I believe I'm not the greatest Bible scholar,
That's okay.
but he goes deeper and deeper. And it's like, how far do you want to go? And he's like, up to here. I believe it's being a son of God is like that. Like that is our identity. We are that, but it's how deep do you want to go in that journey?
Right.
And and yeah, and then you operate from that. You operate as a son. It's like when you know you're a son, you know you're no longer operating out of validation. You're no longer operating to appease the world and the people around you. You're operating out of identity. And John Eldridge uses this example, and I think it's great. But The Lion King, it's like when he finally knew he was a son, when he believed he was a son of the king, and he came back. It's like he had his roar. He believed he was a son, and it was like that song, like "He lives in you," and he's like, it's like Jesus is in you. And once he believed
Right.
that, man, he was on his way back to reclaim the throne. It's like he had his mission because he knew who he was. You
Right.
know,
Absolutely. And that I forgot about that analogy, but yes, that is a good analogy.
yeah.
Um, yeah, once we have that identity, and we can start, you know, moving in that direction. I personally believe anyway that God has a mission for each and every one of us, a calling that He puts on our heart,
Mhm.
and we can't get that calling. We can't, experience or learn what that is for ourselves until we have that identity, and
Yeah.
and then, like you said, then we're moving in that direction, and it kind of goes back to, you know leading, or leadership starts with the heart,
Mhm.
and how we live out that our day-to-day life starts with the heart as well. We have to, as the leader, or the quotes that leaders uses, leaders must lead themselves first.
Yeah.
So, we have to lead ourselves in a way, with our heart. So, as as a father, give us some give us some examples, maybe, put you on the spot. Give us
Yeah.
some examples of leading with our heart and leading our families.
Yeah. And I'm 100% in agreement with you because it almost always comes back to us. Like,
Right.
I think when I started this journey, my initial thing is, well, my wife's not doing this, my kids aren't doing this, and it's like I'm shifting blame on them instead of actually taking accountability for myself. And and so often I've found is that, I can't control them. I can't change their hearts actually, because God is the one who changes their hearts. But the only one I'm responsible for is me. And I read this in a book called The Bondage Breaker. And they were talking about spiritual goals. And he was saying, if a mom says, I'm going to raise the best family, or dad says, since we're talking to dads, a dad says, I'm going to have the best family for Christ. They're going to serve Christ with all their hearts. Well, who is that goal dependent upon? It's dependent upon the kids, the world, all there's people around them who can influence them. It's dependent upon everything else that he can't control. But if he says, I'm going to be the best godly father and husband that God has created me to be, well, then who's that dependent upon? God.
Yep.
So it's no longer, and that's what's going to change the people around you. That's what's going to change them. It's not you saying that they need to be this and setting these expectations. It's always just going to be working on you. And that's a hard thing because I found too that because I worked on myself so hard, I started to have expectations that my family should operate in such a
Right.
way, or they should be, they should have this self awareness. And that's not fair on them too, because I got to understand that they're on their own journey. So, I guess the pointer is it's always going to come back to you. It's always going to come back to your feet of how you choose to respond, how you choose to react, and how you choose to surrender it. And it's a hard one because we may even be in the right sometimes, but then God calls us to humility. God
Right.
calls us to serve. And, you know, so often there's things that I'll get upset about my kids or my children. And God will remind me, you know, you did the same thing. It's the same emotion, but you're just an adult. Like I'm struggling with the same thing that my son is struggling with, except I'm an adult. The same core emotion.
Right.
And so it really just gives me a lot of grace and compassion with my family, with my wife, and just knowing that, well, it's hard for me to really point out anything to them because it's still me. I'm still going through that as well. I'm still struggling in that arena. And so it's just having empathy, understanding, and just surrendering.
Right. You make a great point. We can, once we realize that, it is us and it starts with us. We go down that path, and we get down that path, and we expect other people to be next to us
Mm-hmm.
on the same path, but they're on their own path, their own journey. And I know for myself, I can admit that I have been frustrated with my family members because I expected them to be somewhere else on the path
Mm-hmm.
when when that was wrong of me because they're learning their own time, their own way. And that, as you were saying, that really really kind of brought some light into my heart as well, and how I need to do a better job of just offering more grace and the empathy, as you said. So I appreciate that.
Hey, that's a daily surrender, man.
uh,
Right?
I'll
For
have
me
to
too, man.
I'll have to take that, make a clip of that and post it.
it's
uh,
it's so true though, isn't it funny how it just comes back full circle. It's I mean, yeah, that's me every day. There's
right.
a daily surrender in that, and I think that's such a powerful title that you have because it's so needed. It's
Right.
it's so it, it's it's necessary. It's really the only way.
Yeah, that's I mean that's one of the things that I've learned, through my journey is just realizing that, it's not a we get baptized and we're good to go, which I feel like there's so many people that whether they whether they just believe that or they hope that or they just don't understand that, there's, yes, there's salvation in choosing Christ,
Mhm.
but there's so much more than just salvation that God is offering us.
Yeah.
He's offering to restore us, to teach us what that new creation is, and
Mhm.
offering us a relationship and a guide on the journey that we're on to just bring him closer to us.
Yeah. And I love that word guide. I actually changed my title from coach to field guide, but I was
Okay.
advised that it caused too much confusion because everyone's like, "What's a field guide?" And but the way I saw it was, I get coach, I get it. I'm not a master. But I've walked this road. I know
Right.
the lay of the land. So I was like, field guide sounds a little more accurate to what I feel I'm doing because I'm still walking that journey. I'm still learning the land.
Right.
But to someone who hasn't walked that road, I can help you out there. I can help you understand the lay of the land. I can help you understand the journey. But just know I'm on the journey as well. I'm walking that same path that you are. But so yeah, I like the word guide is I love that word.
Yeah. That just reminded me of another thing from John Eldridge. Uh, I think he was talking about the different levels of or stages of a man,
Hmm.
and the you have a king, but then he
The
also talks
sage.
about the sage. Yes,
Mhm.
there's so many people in this world that experts, that quote unquote experts and blah blah blah. But I don't want to claim to be an expert in anything,
Yeah.
especially not surrendering,
Yeah.
because there's I believe there's so many different ways that God can work in our lives, and it's typically not going to be the same way twice.
Yeah.
So I try and keep that mindset of sage,
Hmm.
so we can just point people to God. We don't have to
Yeah.
be experts. Allow people to really have that um have that opportunity to learn and to see how God is leading them
Hmm.
in their lives.
Yeah. It's the daily practice of just hearing his voice. Like he says that my sheep know me and they know my voice. And that is the practice right there is understanding the voice of God and giving space to that. And
Right.
yeah, it's a skill. It's not something we can just have. I mean, maybe some people have it, but for me, it's something that has to be worked.
Yeah. I think I think there's very, very few people, if any, that quote unquote have it.
Yeah.
You or if they do have it, it's been a long practice
Mhm.
of gaining or getting it. Um, I just got a notification saying that we have eight minutes left. I don't know when they changed the rules on me that I'm limited, but
That just happened, huh? Is
yeah,
that how Zoom works now?
apparently because
Huh?
it's telling me to upgrade
Oh, okay.
or we're getting cut off. That's
Yeah.
never had that happen before. So I don't know. Must be something with the new update.
They
So
just want more money. They can get it, they'll get it. So,
that's the way it is.
yeah.
Um, so with that, I will let you. I feel like there's a lot more we could talk about,
Mhm.
um, but since we're going to get cut off, I'm going to let you have the final word, and we will have to do this again because
Yeah.
yeah, there's a lot more that we could talk about and dive into.
Mhm.
So if you would just give the final word and let people know where they can contact you, and I'll have you send me the links, put those in the show notes so people can go directly to you.
Yeah. Um, Not very professional, to be honest. Yours setup is great. I was like, wow, he's got Linktree, he's got all these things. I'm just on Instagram and Facebook. My Instagram is Gabriel_Perez official, I think. Just a regular email, gjperez03@gmail.com. And so you can get in contact me there, with me there. You can message me. And yeah, you can always get connected in that way. Yeah, and that's all I got right now. Yeah. I think I need to be more prepared because this is the second time I've been asked that. I don't know my Instagram handle very well. I don't know my Facebook handle, and I don't have a very professional email, but that's just me.
That's all right. As long as there's links to get in touch with you, that's all we
Yeah.
need. And like I said, I'll put them in the show notes so people don't have to remember them. They can just go
Yeah.
to it and click on it.
Yeah, that's right.
But Gabriel, I appreciate you joining me, and I appreciate the work that you're doing because you know fathers fathers need other fathers to just encourage them and guide them. So I
Hmm.
appreciate what you're doing, and like I said, there's so much more that I feel like we're leaving on the table. So
Yeah.
we'll have to do a part two.
Yeah, I would love that. I thank you for inviting me on your platform. There's my
Yep,
youngest. And no, I love the work you're doing, man. Keep it up. It's been great talking to you and getting to know you a little bit more here. And so thank you. I appreciate you.
absolutely. Gabriel, you have a good night, and we will talk soon. All right, man. That was Gabriel Perez. He was my guest, and he is a coach that is helping fathers that are feeling overwhelmed and feeling like failures to become better fathers. And we had a great discussion on becoming sons of God, and that's the second step to surrendering, is understanding our identity in God, that new creation that He has called us to. You know, salvation comes through faith and comes through just giving our lives to Jesus. But the next step is learning who you are, who God has called you to be. So, men, I encourage you to continue to build that relationship with God, to ask God questions and figure out who who He believes you are, who He has made you to be. Ask the question, who do you say I am, Lord? Who do you say I am, Father? And just pause and wait for that answer, because God will answer you, and you will learn who He has called you to be, who He created you to be. So, with that, again, I thank Gabriel for joining me, and I do feel we got cut off. I do feel like there was a lot more we could have talked about, so we will have to do a part two. Um, but with that, men, continue to strengthen yourselves, encourage others. By doing so, we honor God. Thanks for listening to the Surrendered Strength Radio. Connect with me at surrenderedstrength.com. Be sure to share this podcast with other brothers in Christ, family, and friends. Until next time, remain strong, courageous, and honorable, loving God and loving others as yourself.